Hello. This presentation on ecology applications for drones is part of a series of technical webinars provided by Comprehensive Environmental Incorporated, also known as CEI. Please visit CEI's website at www.ceiengineers.com for a list of other webinar topics. My name is Bob Hartzel. I'm a principal with CEI and lead CEI's Ecological Services practice. I have over 25 years of experience leading assessment, restoration, and planning projects for a wide range of freshwater, coastal, and upland habitats. Since joining CEI in 2017, I've been working to apply drones to a rapidly expanding range of ecology investigations through CEI's Eagle Eye Aerobotics. Eagle Eye specializes in both engineering and ecology applications of drone technology. CEI uses drones for a wide range of ecological investigations, including vegetation mapping, tracking changes in regulated wetlands, documenting cyanobacteria blooms, septic system investigations, and assessments of forestry health. As I'll discuss further, the level of detail that you can see with drones and the type of data that you collect is determined by several factors, including flight altitude and the type of cameras being used. For comparison with readily available high-altitude imagery, these images compare a CEI drone image on the left and a Google Earth image on the right of the same area of salt marsh. The drone image allows you to see individual blades of Spartina salt marsh grass. The Google Earth image is obviously much lower resolution, which really limits how much it can be used for ecology applications. Shoreline inspections allow a rapid view of large areas to identify problem areas such as bank erosion and damage following intense storms such as hurricanes and tornadoes. CEI uses drones in a similar manner for a rapid watershed-wide reconnaissance of potential locations to install infrastructure, such as stormwater management improvements. CEI also uses drones to efficiently conduct inventories of structures along extensive areas of shoreline, such as docks, piers, and retaining walls. These shoreline areas are often not visible from public roads and could otherwise require numerous private property access permissions to view. You can see from the thin white contour lines on this image that the drone was also used to collect detailed 1-foot topographic survey data that CEI used for developing engineering designs. This photo shows a Cyanobacteria bloom in a small pond that CEI documented by drone. Cyanobacteria blooms, also known as blue-green algae, can release toxins that are harmful to humans, pets, and wildlife, and drones allow for a rapid documentation of the extent and spread of a bloom. Drones are also really useful for getting information from large and inaccessible areas, such as this Cape Cod salt marsh. An area of this size might be difficult or dangerous, or even impossible to access by foot, or even a boat in some of the interior areas of the salt marsh. But a drone allows you in just a few minutes to cover a wide swath of land, collecting all sorts of information very rapidly. CEI is also using drones for detailed vegetation mapping. This can be used for a variety of purposes, such as documenting wetland change and the presence or spread of invasive species. The photo on the left shows a wetland with invasive reed canary grass surrounding an area of sensitive fern. Typically in field investigations, if you wanted to map out where these species were dominant, you'd need to use a GPS unit or a traditional ground survey to walk around the perimeter to see where the species composition changes. The photo on the right shows how drones can be used to map these areas with a high degree of accuracy. You can clearly see where the reed canary grass yields to the sensitive fern in the middle, just by the plant structure and mostly the color picked up by the drone image. And this image is taken at an altitude of about 250 feet, so the lower you go, the more detailed you get, and the more accurate you get. Near-infrared imagery is another tool that CEI uses by having drones outfitted with a near-infrared camera. Near-infrared imagery provides information that is not visible to the human eye. It's outside the visible light spectrum. Vegetation typically absorbs visible light and reflects near-infrared. The healthier or denser the vegetation, the more near-infrared is reflected. Vegetation mapping, forest health assessments, and other ecology applications make good use of near-infrared imagery. And we'll talk more about that and a few of those applications later in detail. But here you can see, just from the colors reflected in this image, ranging from tans and light greens to reds and all the way through to the purple part of the spectrum. These signature colors that the plants are reflecting allows you to get very good detail on what species are growing and where. As a tool to assess forest health, CEI has developed Forest ID, which is short for Forest Investigations by Drone. Forest ID uses specialized cameras to capture both the color and near-infrared parts of the spectrum. This imagery is used to assess forest based on the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, or NDVI, which is a mathematical interpretation of color and near-infrared data. In NDVI imagery, darker green colors indicate more vigorous, productive vegetation. Red indicates stressed or less productive vegetation, and also areas lacking vegetation, such as roadways. As shown on the previous slide, NDVI can be seen as processed imagery, which indicates the health of vegetation, but it can also be converted to a numeric or a statistical representation of vegetation health, as shown here. The healthy tree on the left has a higher NDVI score of 0.72 based on its reflectance of visible red light and near-infrared, while the unhealthy tree on the right has a lower score of 0.14 based on its reflectance. CEI can quickly apply this statistical approach to large areas of forest based on drone imagery. So as an example project using Forest ID, we'll talk about a source water protection forestry assessment that was done for the Lake Massabesic watershed in New Hampshire. The project objectives were to first conduct a rapid drone assessment of forest land managed by Manchester Waterworks to protect Lake Massabesic, which supplies drinking water to Manchester, New Hampshire and surrounding communities. Second, the processed drone data will be used to identify areas where insect and pathogens are affecting forest health, and this will be used to help inform forest management decisions. And third, the result of this project will be used to develop protocols for use in future projects throughout New Hampshire and New England. This project is funded by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services through a source water protection grant, and as I mentioned, its results will hopefully be applied throughout New England. This map shows the 860-acre study area in green. These areas were selected for having both a good diversity of forest habitat and also for known occurrences of 3 key forest stressors. These stresses are the Canavergella needlecast, which is a fungal infection that affects pine trees, pine canker, a pathogen that also affects pine trees, and the emerald ash borer, which is a non-native insect that affects ash trees. The drone NDVI images will be used to compare areas affected by these pests to healthy forest stands, which will allow for rapid detection and response to prevent future spread. Another application of near-infrared and specialized drone imagery is called Septic ID, which stands for Septic System Investigations by Drone. Septic ID uses specialized cameras to detect vegetation indicators of potential septic system failure. Malfunctioning septic systems can be difficult to detect. As shown in the photos here, indicators of extreme failure include dead or stressed vegetation, overproductive vegetation, high soil moisture, and direct effluent or septic effluent surface outbreak. In most cases, these indicators of failure are very subtle and are difficult to detect from the ground. Septic ID provides a new tool using near-infrared drone images to help identify failing septic systems that may otherwise go undetected. Using near-infrared imagery for septic system investigations is not a new technique. In fact, the US EPA Illicit Discharge Manual includes this method as an accepted approach for identification of failing septic systems. Previous studies have used near-infrared cameras on fixed-wing aircrafts for this purpose, but at a much higher altitude than is possible with drones. In the 3 images here, the purple box indicates the general location of a septic leach field. The darker red area within the box indicates that the vegetation here is different than the surrounding area of lawn. And this difference is a telltale signature of septic system failure. This type of information helps to focus efforts on more detailed field investigations to confirm the failure and fix the problem. As an example of a CEI Septic ID project, Let's look at some imagery from an assessment of Pillings Pond in Lynnfield, Massachusetts. So here are a few examples of imagery from this project, showing a well-functioning septic system and one with a suspected failure. For the first property, the image on the left is a typical camera image, what we would call a red, green, blue image, similar to what you would get from a typical camera or from your cell phone. And you can see from the grass lawn that it looks fairly uniform in all parts, and that the near-infrared image on the right also shows no indication of anything that would jump out as a difference in the vegetation that would indicate a failing septic system. Now, the second property is a different story. Looking at the photo on the left, you can possibly see a very faint area, just a little bit darker green, where there's a signal of septic system failure. But as you see in the image on the right, that signal is much stronger when processed as near-infrared imagery. It's important to note that you would not be able to see that signal if you were standing on the lawn. You really have to be above it and processing it in the right way to tease out that signal and see that there's a problem, something that you may want to take action on. Thanks for watching this webinar. For more information on using drones for ecology investigations and environmental management, please contact Bob Hartzel or Emily DeFranco, or visit CEI's website. Thanks.